Hey guys, welcome back to the Launch Your Real Life podcast, where I help young Christians make the transition from total dependence on parents and family to complete independence. And we do that not for the sake of being independent, but actually being able to live how you want and make an impact on the kingdom, right? So hopefully, you have been thinking about what that looks like for you, what your world looks like currently, and how you can have peace and still have an impact. Um, but our good intentions aren't enough. They never are. I intend a lot of good things that just don't come through. You need to have a system for your finances that scales as you grow and progress. So that means that if you're in college with a part-time job, your budget reflects that, and it's something you can just turn the dial up on when you come into your full-time job, right? So a good budget should balance three things, in my opinion. First, sustainability. Second, our values. And third, margin. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about sustainability. Um, it's huge because it doesn't matter how good it is if you can't stick to it. I've seen some really cool and complicated budgets and apps and spreadsheets that really just wouldn't work for me because my brain doesn't really like to get into the weeds of things. But other people will function differently. But it also means that you have to be realistic with yourself about what you can and can't do without, right? If you know that despite your best intentions, you're going to keep getting coffee every morning. Hopefully not at Starbucks because man, that's expensive. But maybe you're like me and you like McDonald's coffee. Um, but you know that you're gonna go get coffee every morning, right? Don't set yourself up for failure with your budget by not accounting for that, right? Somebody might think, well, I just need to have as tight a budget as possible on paper. But the fact is that doesn't matter if you can't follow through with it. So let's not do this with wishful thinking. Let's try to be realistic about what we need to account for in our budget, right? And then when we talk about our values, values are what we believe expressed through our actions, and that's why I think finances are really important to begin with, because it is such a clear reflection of what we value when we talk about our finances. You've heard it said, I'm sure, that somebody could look through your bank account and see what you really value, right? What you really believe in. If generosity is a value you have, we want our budget to reflect that, right? Um, an example I have is I value the safety of my family, right? I have three kids now, a wife, all of whom I love, and I recognize my own mechanical deficiencies. So when it became clear that we needed a bigger vehicle, I went ahead and got a loan, right, for a car that wasn't a beater, so that I could make sure my family was safe. But I also value limiting my debt, right? So I have a considerable amount going towards paying that off quickly, right? So both things can be true. Um, but if you have a value of um, being faithful in giving to the Lord and giving to your church, then hopefully you'll set up a tithe or give a percentage to your church that's investing in you. I think that's super important. So the last thing is margin. Now, margin is just what's left over once you take your income and you subtract your expenses. What's left over is margin. And if a budget doesn't have margin, then it really lacks the power to um, it really lacks the power to do it, to move you forward in your financial journey, right? So for me, I consider in my budget anything that I am investing for retirement, my generosity, and my goals to be margin. So my car payment, my actual payment, is an expense. But anything extra that I'm putting towards that to pay it off quickly, that's my margin. That gives me the power to move forward through my goals. Um, so here's where the balance comes in. If you decide to include eating out every week in your budget because you won't be able to stick to it otherwise, but at the same time you have zero margin, or maybe you have even negative cash flow, then you have to face the reality of the situation and you have to make adjustments. And it's super important here that you have accountability and you have people you can lean on. And I have some exciting news coming up about that soon that hopefully I'll be able to announce by next week. Um, but anyways, you have to balance these things. You have to work through them and find a system that works for you, right? Even if at times you're going to be more you're gonna have more excuse me, uh, you're gonna have less fun money than you want, or you're gonna have to sacrifice sometimes, or you might find that you have actually more money to give, or whatever the circumstances are. Um, but it starts by knowing your numbers. Even if you don't like them, you have to evaluate your income, your spending, your debt, and your savings to make sure that you are accounting for everything and that you have the full picture of your finances. A lot of people, for instance, don't include things that are for sure going to happen. Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, tires, repairs, things like that. A lot of people don't reflect that in their budget, and it really comes to bite them later when they feel like a failure because they failed to account for this. And it's a simple mistake, but it's also an easy fix. So, with that being said, um, next week I'm going to go break down more of the actual budget system that I use, and I'm really excited about that. But in the meantime, if you're listening to this, maybe the next episode is already out and you can listen to both. Um, I've created another tool um, that is specifically to help you in that endeavor of gathering your expenses. So if you go to, the link will be down in the description. If you go to outline.newstoryfinancial.com, you're going to come to a page where it can actually help walk you through gathering your expenses. You'll need to pull out your bank account app or if you have a current budget app that syncs to your bank accounts, pull that up and enter in everything you can think of to make a realistic budget. And then you can generate a report and have all your numbers laid out before you. And that'll really help when we go into the actual budget system next week. So I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll let me know what you think of that. I'm still tweaking it, but I'm really excited to start rolling out some of these tools. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great week. And my wife just texted me that I need to get back in and help with the baby. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a good day.